readers, welcome back to the LA Reads podcast. We're your hosts, Abby
and Leighton, and this is episode 11.
Wow, you got it.
I know. I thought about that beforehand. I was like, I'm going to get it.
I'm so proud of you.
This time.
All right. As usual, we are going to go over what we read this week. What'd you read? I have to pull up your app every time because you read so much. I don't understand.
It's bad. It's not healthy. But according to my app, I read Things I Wanted to Say, which is a Lancaster Prep novel by Monica Murphy, according to my bookshelf. And then I read The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, which first ever Lynn Painter book.
Did you like that?
I loved it.
Wait, good. Okay.
I was afraid because the concept is Groundhog's Day, which is like reliving the same day over and over again, which is not my favorite. However, it was very cute, and it's YA. 10 out of 10, would recommend.
Cute, okay.
Then I read If We Ever Meet Again and If the Sun Never Sets by Anna Huang. Which is, for some reason I had never heard of it, but it's an older series. I think it was released in like 2020.
Yeah, okay.
But I liked both of those. I read Wicked by Amo Jones and then Saviors by Ames Mills.
Wow. I'm so impressed. So how many books have you read this year so far?
85.
Oh my gosh.
I'm frightened by myself.
I do not know how that is even possible.
Well, I don't think it should be. I think if you're reading that much, you need help. And that is me. So
I think you're doing great.
You're so kind. What did you read?
Okay, I think I listened to CC3 in preparation for this episode.
You finished the whole thing?
I finished the whole thing. I listened to it though.
Okay,
so that's a little bit different. But I listened to CC3 and then I read two books called, one was the first one's A Door in the Dark and then A Whisper in the Wall. That was the book deal that I had. It was my first book deal, which was very exciting. Anyways, but honestly, I was so nervous because I was like, what if I hate it?
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, and like they were paying me for it, but I've always said like if I had been offered money before and I didn't like the book and I told them I wasn't going to do it anymore, but I was just like, I really want to like this, and I actually really did like it. So that was good. 10 out of 10. Love.
Wait, so stressful, but I love that.
It reminded me a ton of One Dark Window. Like, literally so similar. In the sense, like, just vibes. Like, you know when, like, you read a book and you're like, nothing about this book is the same, but just the vibes are the same?
Yes.
That was how that book was for me. So,
okay, love that.
Anyway, so I read that, and then I think that honestly might have been it. I finished Tress of the Emerald Sea and
fun.
Taming 7. I think I finished those after last week's podcast.
Holy cow!
So now I've read all of the Boys of Toman series.
I'm so jealous of you.
You need to read all of them. They're so good.
I'm still on Saving 6.
They're a little emotional, to say the very least, but they're so good.
I hate that, but I will be reading them.
You need to read them. So, anyways, I think that was all I read this week, though.
That's a lot.
I know, but honestly, I was looking at, like, how many books I read in April. I read 12, and I'm like, April came and went so fast.
I freaking know.
I literally can't handle it. I was like, how the frick? All the months are just going by so quickly, and it's stressing me out, but it's fine.
Yeah, I feel like I'm full on adulting now because my birthday's in April, and usually I'm looking forward to it for like months in advance. I like looked at the date one day, and I was like, holy cow, it's in 2 days.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't even pay attention.
No. Any other updates, though?
Not that I can think of. Do you have a writing update?
Oh, I get my edits back this week.
I'm
so nervous. Yeah, so this episode will be coming out on Thursday, so I get them, which I don't remember what day of the week that is. Whatever day the 11th is, I get my edits back on the 11th.
Holy cow.
I'm so scared. I literally, like, the thought of it gives me butterflies, makes me want to throw up, but it's fine.
That will be so nice, though, to have a professional give you a direction, being like, you're there, you're so close, this is what you need to change.
Yeah, I've kind of just come to the conclusion that I'm like, it'll be fine. I think it'll be good just to have a direction. Even if it's like, this is bad, I'm like, hey, at least that's a direction, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all my updates.
Oh my gosh.
I'll let you all know but by the time we film next week's episode, I will have my edits, hopefully. So I'll kind of have an update for all of you, hopefully.
Oh, I can't wait.
Either next episode or the week after. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, well, we're going to jump right into this week's episode because we have a lot to unpack. This is our last SJM video episode for our 6 weeks of SJM.
Yeah, holy cow, that came and went.
No, that literally came and went so fast. But we are going to be talking about Crescent City 3, House of Flame and Shadow is his most recent release. that came out in January. This is your spoiler warning for all of SJM Universe. We'll be talking about everything. Everything. So if you have not read the rest of the SJM Universe, goodbye, come back later. But if you've read this book, I would hope that you have read all of her books at this point. Because if you read this book without reading the other books, I'll be so sad for you.
You're so confused. You have to be.
You have to be so confused. So, anyways, let's dive right in. Where do you even want to begin this behemoth of a book?
I think we start with general thoughts. What did you rate it?
Okay.
Overall thoughts.
Okay, my overall thoughts. Well, okay. The very first time I read it, I loved it. Like, close to a 5-star read for me. I was, like, obsessed with it. I was like, I felt like it was so good. And it was so, like, there was so much going on. Loved it. Listening to it again. And mind you, listening to it again, because usually reading it again is longer. Listening to it, I was like, this book is freaking long.
Yes.
And
it's like, what, 850?
Yeah, something like that. And there are parts that I absolutely love. And there are parts where I'm just like, this is just pointless. Like, I don't understand. So now it's looming more at like a 3.5, 4-star for me, which is kind of sad that it dropped down because originally it was so high. But just listening to it again, I'm like, I'm seeing the flaws in this story right now, you know?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the first time I read it, I liked it. I didn't love it. Definitely better than House of Sky and Breath for me, but nowhere near House of Earth and Blood.
I totally agree.
And so I would have said maybe 3.75, 4 stars range. However, I do not consider myself the most analytical first-time reader. Things go over my head all the time until I reread and think through it.
Yeah.
And so now that I didn't reread the whole thing, but I did a large skim through and reread some of my favorite parts and the parts I didn't like. And I would say maybe it's a 3.5 star book for me now.
Yeah. Which is kind of sad. Like, honestly, this series I felt like had so much potential. But like literally like my number one note for this book was just the fact that I felt like she took it and she just kind of built it to get ACOTAR where she wanted it to go, and it stopped being a Crescent City book. It started being a stepping stone for the ACOTAR series. And I think I realized I picked up on more things like that the second time listening to it than I did the first time. Because there are parts that I really like, but there were also a lot of plot holes.
Yes, and I feel like a lot of the character arcs didn't stay true to who they were in the previous books. For example, Bryce, I have a whole novel written down.
Go, because I have so many thoughts about Bryce.
Just how much I don't like Bryce in this book. And having done our previous episode with House of Earth and Blood, I forgot how much I really did like Bryce. Mm-hmm. And I think she just murdered her character arc in this book.
Absolutely destroyed her. Well, okay, one of my first thoughts was that in the book, there's like the scene where they like when they kill the Autumn King and the Stag King in the cave or whatever, and first off, that scene is like probably the cheesiest scene I've ever read. I'm like listening to it and I was literally gagging. I was like, this is so cheesy. I hate this. It's kind of cringy. But anyways, Sathia, whom I love, this is Therion's wife, whom I love, calls Bryce out and she was like, why? Like, I was hoping that you would want to be queen and make us better. And Bryce is like, the entire book, she's like hating on the Fae. And I was like, I feel like we took her like dislike for the Fae and exaggerated it so much in this book to the point that I was like, I cannot handle this. It makes no sense.
A bunch of her closest friends and family have Fae.
Yes.
You're like,
all of them. And they're all veneer. Like, they're all some sort of creature of some sort. So I'm like, I literally, like, I don't understand that plot point of, like, I understand she didn't like the Fae and she doesn't like her father, but, like, she took it and really said, I want them to suffer. And she was literally acting like a child about it. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. It feels like you took this one plot point about her and exaggerated it so much.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I literally have a bulleted list of things that I don't think stayed true to what I wish her character arc would have gone in House of Earth and Blood.
Yes.
If we would have continued that same way.
I'm
so
excited.
For example, Hunt, we know him and Baxian and Rune were kidnapped and tortured and we're not living their best of lives.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel
not
like
well.
Trauma could be associated with that. Yeah. he comes back. He needs a moment to be like, wow, I was just tortured. I was ripped away from you. My wings were ripped off my back. And she's like, now is not the time. Could you just get over that? What?
Okay, difference in the situation, okay? Because in Throne of Glass, we see that Aelin gets kidnapped.
Yes.
And the moment that she gets back, Rowan is like so kind, so gentle, like gives her the space that she needs, whatever. Hunt gets back from being captured and tortured, and she's like, I need you to support me and be my mate. I need my mate. And I'm like, yes! Girl, this poor guy.
And we get to see in Throne of Glass, Aelin kind of have a meltdown where she's breaking when she can't get the mask off. She finally does. She saves Fenris. She bursts into flames.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, this feels all very validating of her trauma.
Yes.
And it felt like Hunt needed that release. And she's like, not today.
The only thing I will say is I felt like Hunt all of a sudden started to backpedal and was like fearing of like doing another rebellion, which again, understandable. He has like past trauma or whatever. But also at the same time, I was like, shouldn't this have been like a concern like book 2? I feel like we are now in the middle of a war and like that's happening.
It's
like
too late.
It's too late. Like, so I do see that side of it too. I don't know. But I do agree that was like an inconsistent, like it wasn't a very fluid plot point, to say the very least, of like how Hunt was handling his emotions in those situations.
No.
And then how they, like literally my number one point too was Bryce and Hunt just were not it in this book. They were butting heads so many times in this book. And I'm like, I don't understand.
No, I 100% agree. I think with Bryce's character as well, things that she did that I didn't agree with is we see Team Caves or whatever. Declan and Flynn are captured by the two kings, whatever. And she's like, yeah, go ahead and kill them. I don't care. I'm like, wait. Okay, I understand you might not be the closest with them, but your brother, that's their best friend.
Yes.
Like, you can't, and I know she's probably putting on a brave face to be like, oh, just kill them. I don't care. No, gambling with people's lives is not funny.
The people that you care about and who have helped you through this entire thing, you don't just sacrifice their life.
Yeah, and then the Autumn King comes later when they're still in the caves and encircles them all in a ring of fire, and he's like, I'm gonna burn everybody. And she's like, do it. I'm like, no, not again.
Like, stop faking it till you make it at this point.
Yeah, I'm like, he's gonna call your bluff one of these times. You need to stop that. And then we'll touch base on a lot of these points again, but just for this point, the pushing her parents into the portal, like, did she not forget she is a new brother? Cooper, my boy Emil.
Well, they even
what are we doing with
when
it?
she goes and gets her parents again, Ember is like, we will be having a serious chat. You left Cooper behind. And I'm like, yeah, agreed. I would be pissed.
Was she not like all of House of Sky and Breath? That was one of her main focus. She's like, I'm not even going to tell Cormac when he was super close. Were him and Sophie mates, or were they just dating?
It was never confirmed if they were mates, but they were in love, yeah.
You're not even going to tell Cormac about the love of his life's little brother because you're so concerned, and then you're going to leave him behind?
I know, and also her reasoning was just like, I didn't have a choice. You would have questioned why I was asking him to come, and I'm like, so you basically just you said, what's more important, leaving my parents here and letting them be safe on Avalon, or taking them, splitting them away from a child, and throwing them into a portal? I was like, wow, you really just said Cooper's not as important as you two.
Oh, I couldn't get over it. And then we proceed. I guess this is right after. Hunt rips off his halo, right?
Yep.
And I think it's Celestina that's like, how do you have Archangel magic when you're not an Archangel? And he's like, it's because I'm the Umbra Mortis. And she's like, no, you're not. You're high. I'm like, wait, let him cook. He's gonna do so good.
Let him cook.
I understand because she's like, you don't have to be the Umbra Mortis. Like, I love Hunt. But I'm like, he was on fire. Could we not have seen it through?
I'm so confused by their relationship as well, because I feel like why is it that I feel like Bryce like wears the pants in that relationship, but like Hunt is sometimes a big baby and he's just like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, you're right, I'm just Hunt. And I'm like, what?
Wait, I have a great point with that, because literally when she tells Hunt like, oh, I'm gonna resurrect all your dead friends from the rebellion and put them into the mech suits, he's like, I don't know if that's the best idea. Their souls are still intact. We're not really asking permission. And she's like, you're disagreeing with me? And he's like, I'm so sorry I disagreed with you. I'm like, wait, no, he has a valid point. Why are we apologizing?
Even at the very end of the book, he literally like goes on the field and like finds Mexico. Like he's having a moment, okay? And he's like saying like thank you to the fallen, like after the war or whatever. And Isaiah like comes up to him. Literally, Isaiah's like, Hunt, we need a leader. And he gets a text from Bryce. And Bryce is like, hi, no rush, but where are you? I'm having separation anxiety. And I'm like, you can't even give him a minute. Yes. And literally he walks away. He walks away from a position where he could be leading the angels and says, nah, I'm going to go with my mate. And I'm like,
Rage. Wow.
She is really not letting him cook.
I know. The cherry on top of it all. And she disrespected my girl Lydia. And there's no forgiveness for that. Because Pollux, when he's kidnapped Ace and Bran or whatever, and Lydia's kind of having a meltdown. She's
trying to hold it in.
Yeah, she's not thinking the most rationally for valid reasons. And Bryce looks at her and says, could you leave the baggage behind today? My girl, what? The baggage? You mean her children? Anyway, I read that line. I said, book in air. I'm absolutely done with this.
I literally cannot. But I also, okay, this is something that's so annoying to me too, is that she is so, Bryce in this book, honestly, just gets this like high and mighty, I am better than you.
Oh, yeah.
Every single time. And which is frustrating because, again, we've talked about this before, where it's very similar to Aelin in the sense of like, she'll make these plans and then you don't know what they are until they've already unfolded or have like come to fruition, whatever. But with Bryce, it was just like, so arrogant and like I don't like not in like it wasn't in like a fun like welcoming way, and I just was like, you feel like you are better than everyone else and that's really frustrating to me, yet you walk away from being queen. But you're like, but I'm gonna hold on to all of these things, like I'm gonna hold on to the Avalon land because they don't deserve it. And I'm like, you are making all of the calls, yet you removed yourself from being queen, so who gives you this power?
Wait, I 100% agree. And when we talk about it later, because it's specific to the ending of the book, I have not a theory, but a way that I would have preferred the book to have ended that I think would have made up for a lot of this.
Yes. But anyways, did you have any other thoughts about Bryce? Or was that the end of your list?
That was the end of my list, but that was like 8 things long. Yes. It was a little crazy.
No, it's fine. The number one thing that I hated about this book too was just the amount of plot holes. But for those of you who don't know, there was an interview where Sarah J Maas said that she wrote Crescent City 3. She decided that she didn't like it and she scrapped it and started over and rewrote it in a month and a half. She wrote this entire book in a month and a half.
Crazy.
She scrapped the original thing. But here's the thing, is that at the end of CC2, we get a scene where when Rune is hugging Bryce, we see at the end of CC2 that Rune, like when he gives her a hug, drops something in her pocket, which we all assumed was the calm stone or whatever that he was using to talk to Lydia. Okay? Drops it in her pocket. She also said in an interview that we were going to find out more of what Rhys saw, like when they saw the red star in Silver Flames, because it was insinuated that the red star that they questioned in Silver Flames was Aelin falling through the worlds. And, I think that was the only thing. I can't remember. There was a couple. But those are the only 2 that came to mind. Anyways, this made me, but when I was thinking about it this time, that made me think that I honestly feel like SJM thought that that Bryce was going to be in Prythian and interact with the people of Prythian way more than she did in her second draft.
Yeah, I wonder if she had more of a crossover in her first draft and then got an idea kind of where ACOTAR 5 is going to go and maybe pulled it back for a specific reason.
Because the Calmstone never came to fruition. Like, it was never a thing. We never got that explanation of the Red Star from Rhysand. We barely even see the other characters other than Azriel and Bryce. And that was the biggest complaint from everyone, was like, you basically set this up to be this crossover, and yet the crossover was like so limited. And I understand that like you don't want a huge crossover because you don't want it to become like a hugely focused on ACOTAR characters, but at the same time, I'm like, you made it a crossover. Yeah. So make it a crossover.
Well, if I'm correct, I think the crossover ends in like chapter 28. And there's like 105 chapters.
Yes. And honestly, originally, I was like, no, like, it's supposed to be a Crescent City book. I'm glad they didn't have a crossover, like, a ton of crossover. But I'm like, now I'm like, but no, I wish they did, because there were a lot of plot holes. And I just feel like I would have loved to have read whatever she wrote first, because I think that there was a lot more crossing over than there actually ended up being.
Well, I think there was a lot of opportunities that she missed for closure with the ACOTAR characters, because, for example, we get Rune and Reese. They're both find out that they're these starlight shadow whatever. I would have loved to see an interaction between the two of them, being like, we look the same, we have the same powers. It's so nice to speak to somebody who knows what the flip is going on.
Yeah.
Because nobody else knows with 100% certainty besides the two of them, as well as, correct me if I'm wrong, when they go into the caves and they hear the story, what's her name? It's not Celeste. It's
Selena. Or Celine, I think is what they call her.
Celine, or whatever. We used to have, is that Reese's sister?
Oh.
Relative?
No. I can do, I have a full family tree. We'll go through the family tree, but finish your thought.
Okay. Well, from my understanding, because Azrael says something that says, oh, that looks exactly like Reese's sister.
She's a relative.
Yeah. I'm like, wouldn't it have been so nice for Reese, because she filmed herself at the beginning and at the end, to like watch that back and get some sort of closure with that and his family as well? Missed opportunity.
No, I truly think that she intended for there to be a lot more crossover than there actually was, because she was setting up for a lot more questions to be answered, like Rune's mom, like the Red Star, like the Comstone, and we never got any of it. And I'm like, where did it go?
Yeah.
Poof?
Why? I mean, I'm sure she has a reason. I have faith in Sarah J Maas. I'm sure she does everything for a reason.
Yeah.
But why Azrael and Nesta, of all people, where the F was Cassian? What was he doing that whole time? Was he sitting, like, twiddling his thumbs, being like, oh, I'm just waiting for my mate to come back to me?
I think that there's a very huge reasoning as to why Azrael and Nesta were part of it. Can I go through my whole family tree?
Yes.
Okay.
Go.
Because, okay, so in the beginning of the book, like towards the beginning of the book, we get the whole scene that you're talking about where she explains what happened to Thea and Celine and Helena. So we learn, quick summary, Thea had two daughters, Celine and Helena.
Yes.
And they were at war, the first wars, and Hel was helping them. And in last minute, Celine gets sent back to Prythian. Helena gets stuck in Midgard, and Thea dies. Okay, so, and these are like the Fae lands. Anyways, moral of the story is we learn, and during that time, that Celine marries the Lord of Night, is what she says. Meaning, she marries the High Lord of the Night Court.
Yes.
Okay, and then we have Helena, who married. We don't know who she married, but Helena is like the descendant of what like the Autumn King is. So the Helena would be the Autumn King's descendant.
Okay.
So it's really hard to picture in my head. Anyways, so that means that Celine married someone from the Night Court. So everyone that was in the Night Court are descendants of Celine. Selena? Celine? I don't freaking know.
But also, this, correct me if I'm wrong, this is all taking place 15,000 years ago.
Yes, this took place 15,000 years ago.
Okay.
Yep. And now we are in present time, okay? So this means that Rhysand is a descendant of Celine, the starborn princess of person, okay? So that means that there is a chance that Rhysand is starborn.
Yes.
Okay? And I think the reasoning why this works is because, and then anyways, sorry. I was
definitely operating under that assumption that he was starborn.
Okay. And then we also know that they make a comment that Celine looks like Reese's sister. And we talked about it last episode where I think that Rune's mom is his sister, that she was able to escape and get sent to Midgard. So that would mean that Rune would be a descendant of Celine and Helena, essentially, because Helena is the Autumn King is a descendant of Helena, and Rhysand and his sister are descendants of Celine.
I'm following slightly.
Okay. Anyways, besides the point, what I couldn't understand was that being descendants of those people make you starborn, right?
Yeah.
And there is a part where Az holds both of the dagger and the sword, and Bryce is like, oh, he must be a lineage of the starborn because he can hold both of them. You want to know how the only way he can be able able to hold those and be Starborn is if him and Rhysand are related.
For some reason, I'm not here for that. There's no way.
The only way that Azriel can be Starborn is if they are related.
Can you not hold the sword and the dagger at the same time?
No.
I thought you could hold them, they just didn't work. Or can you literally just not even hold them?
Well, you can't hold the star sword.
Oh.
So that means that they have to be related somehow.
Confirmed.
And I literally could not handle, because then I was like, how is it even possible? Because I was trying to think of like how Azriel would have gotten the dagger, and I was like, these were my thoughts. Was either one, Rhys gave it to Azriel as like when they like became friends, and maybe that's how he got the dagger. But I was like, okay, maybe not though. And I was like, maybe Rhysand's father gave him the dagger because Azriel was the Shadow Singer, like he was Rhys's dad's like private shadow singer, personal shadow singer.
Yeah.
Before he died. But then we get really crazy here. But then I was like, again, how is he was born from an Illyrian High Lord and his mom who was also Illyrian. So how could he be related to Rhysand? The only other thing that I thought of was that if his real dad wasn't actually the Illyrian Lord, it was Rhysand's dad.
I was gonna ask which parent they would have in common,
and it would have to be Rhysand's dad, because Rhys's mom is the one that's Illyrian. She's a full Illyrian.
Yeah.
Anyways, I literally just could not handle, and I was like, so literally the only way that Azriel could be related to Rhys is if they had the same dad.
What would that do to the story?
I don't know.
Feels crazy,
but
though.
It feels crazy. Well, and they were talking about the reason why they took. I was looking back, and it was like the reason why Azriel gets to, like, why Rhys's mom takes Azriel in is because she knew Azriel's mom. Like, she knows her, and I was like, what better way to know someone than if your kids share a dad?
Yeah, there was an affair.
Oh my gosh, I literally could not handle. I was like, this makes no sense, but. So yeah, that's literally, but I tried, I thought about it, and I was like, truly the only way that they could be related is if they had the same dad. That's the only way that Azriel could be Starborn.
And it's almost confirmed because he does wield the dagger and the sword at the same time.
Because Bryce says, she's like, wow, he's holding the star sword, and like he must have like the Starborn line like somewhere in him as a distant relative or something.
And this is when they're in the caves,
it's when they're
right?
in the cave, yeah. Anyways, sorry, that was such a tangent, but I was like...
That's crazy, though.
That
I
was
love that you did that research, because my brain would turn to soup if I had to do that.
I was going to whip out the whiteboard, but then I was like, no, it's okay. But yeah, the whole line and things like that of all the descendants, it finally clicked in my head the second time around. I was like, okay, I'm following. But yeah, that would mean that... but that's why, like, Rune looks so different and, like, has more of the shadow powers, and why Bryce has the light powers, because Bryce is more of a direct descendant of Helena, and Rune is more a descendant of Selene.
Wow, my brain is soup.
Sorry.
I think. No, I love it.
That was all.
I literally only have one other thought about the crossover, kind of.
Okay, go.
It's a really dumb thought.
No, that's
However, this being I don't know whether you call it a modern fantasy, an urban fantasy, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah J Maas likes to pick something to be super niche about and then just really hammer that home. So this is Bryce is wearing hot pink sneakers.
Oh, yeah.
She's in those dang hot pink sneakers like so often.
We had to really nail that one home.
Yeah, it's repeated over and over and over again, which is fine. It's fine. However,
is it though?
Then she has the audacity when Bryce is walking into the caves and gets to the end.
Mm-hmm.
It says her, quote, boot scraped over the ground, and that's how she knew it was ingrained. Her boot! You've told me 100 times she's in a hot pink.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, the minute I read it, I said, her what? I've heard the word hot pink sneakers 500 times.
Oh, I did not catch on to that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, but then she's in boots for 1 second. And then she's back to her sneakers.
Oh, okay.
So,
love that.
Rage.
The only other thought that I had about the crossover too, the only thing I did like about the crossover, or something that was random, was that the fact that Bryce sees Nesta as a warrior. She says it multiple times. I was like, oh, that was fulfilling.
I love that.
Yeah. Okay, I have like random like one-off thoughts.
Mine are all over the place.
Okay, great. Like we're about to bounce over all over the place. I'm so sorry. Hold on. Okay, first off, we obviously learned in this episode that their power has basically been stunted because their water has been infested with a parasite. One, I feel like that was like the cheapest plot avenue out of there so fast. Anyways,
agreed.
So stupid. The thing I do not understand about this plot, which is kind of a plot hole to me, is that we say, okay, their powers have been stunted. So explain to me why the people in Midgard have the best regenerative healing than any of the other worlds, because the fact that they can just regrow limbs, basically be dead and come back alive, is not in any of the other books.
Okay, facts. Because, first of all, Rune gets his hand cut off. No problems there. Sabine gets shot in the face. Doesn't matter. That's fine.
Lydia, literally, they're like, we had to put her brains back in, and she's like, alive, a couple days.
I'm like, why are these people even afraid? You can't die in this world.
I truly was like, why? Like, that is literally the most random thing, because you are telling me that their powers are stunted, yet for some reason they can just regenerate their entire body? What?
I had the same thought where it was getting a little out of hand, where I'm like, Lydia, in the case of Lydia, it literally says, like, Lydia smiled with a bloody smile and then died or something when she jumps off the cliff. And then it's like, oh, psych, doesn't matter.
But then also, it's like Therian gets shot and all of a sudden he's like near dying by one bullet. I'm like, I literally don't understand.
Like, the continuity here, non-existent.
No. So yeah, that was annoying. Where do I want to go? Go.
Oh, I have an entire section called What Was the Point? Of just, because I feel like there's many instances in this book where things were happening, but not with no purpose in mind. Like, it wasn't furthering the plot. It wasn't serving a greater purpose in the grand scheme of things, unless it's something for Akatar 5 or something that we don't know about yet, but it felt pretty useless. For example, great example is this regenerative healing. We have Baxian biting Rune's hand off to reach for the poker, right? For Rigolis to walk in right as his hand gets severed from his body, but then we find out it's not that big of a deal because he can just regrow a hand. So I just, in my head, what was the point? What did that serve? There was no trauma explored after the fact, because it wasn't like Rune... I mean, he kind of had his breakdown in the car once they escaped, but even for like Hunt and Baxian, their trauma got stomped on by Bryce.
It's fine.
Yeah, so why we did that? It felt unnecessary. Then we have, this one grinds my gears. We have Therian, when they're trying to enter, not Valhalla.
Or, sorry, Avalon.
Avalon. Thank you.
Sorry.
I point at Abby every time because you know the names and I don't. Avalon, Morven is like, Safia can't come in because we don't let unmarried women in. And Therian says, I'll marry her. They get married. Literally pages later, Morven dies.
Yeah.
But then what comes of it? She leaves to go after Colin or whatever his name. So once again, I ask you, what was the point?
I literally don't know.
Then it gets worse. Ethan, obviously, his whole plot line, he, for all of House of Sky and Breath, is obsessed with this girl in the astronomers, whatever. We find out it's Sigrid, and then he turns around and he kills her.
And then spends the entire book trying to heal her, and you want to poke your eyes out and say, you screwed up, move on.
Yeah, and then she turns into the Reaper, and then, once again, what was I thought the point was going to be, we now have Sigrid, and Sigrid can overthrow Sabine.
Yes.
And that would make sense while she turns into a Reaper.
And then Ethan becomes Prime. And honestly, to that, I ask, why?
What was the point?
And continue.
Then, this one, minute detail, but Bryce sends Lydia and Rune to go recruit the Archangels in Crescent City or whatever when they're leaving Avalon, right? First question. Why didn't we send Baxian? Baxian knows Isaiah. He knows those people. No.
I don't know.
Let's send them Lydia and Rune. And then on top of it, Celestina shows up right after Bryce throws her parents into the portal.
Yes.
So why did Rune and Lydia have to go to Crescent City? They didn't. What was the point? No, nothing happened.
They go to Crescent City, realize that Celestina isn't there, and then Lydia finds out that her boys have been stolen. So they end up going to the Eternal City where they are meeting up with Celestina and all of them anyways.
Yeah. So I'm like, we did that whole loop. Doesn't even matter. She wasn't even there.
Yeah, didn't even matter.
Oh, okay, that's all I had listed.
Oh, but I agree with all of them. Also, the last one was the freaking dragon. Adrian, Ari.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, what was the point? Why? I ask you, why?
The ending, when, I think it's in Therian's point of view, where he sees her and she's like, what's up? Or hello again. Or I don't know what she says, but then end of chapter.
Yeah, goodbye. You're like, what does that
mean? Yeah.
I don't know. I literally just couldn't handle. I agree with all those things. There just was a lot of things that it was like taking us down a lot of different avenues for no point. And I felt like that was more confusing to the reader than it was actually fulfilling. Like, take me down, fine. Take me down all these avenues you want me to, be distracted so that I don't see the big thing coming. But I never really felt like there was a whole, the war at the end. I honestly ask you, why?
So underwhelming.
Because it was so underwhelming. So, literally, the only good part that came out of that war was Lydia and Rune. That was the only thing that I felt like was 100%. Very, fulfilling to me. I literally did not understand. I also had just a bunch of random other thoughts. What was I gonna say? Oh, I had a thought. So we learned that Lydia has two sons, Bran and Actaeon.
Yes,
that's how you say it.
Yes.
Ace. But we also learned I loved that plot point. Did you like that plot point?
I loved that.
Okay, good, because I loved that plot point. Also, side note, I think that the beginning of this book was significantly better than the end of this book.
Unpopular opinion. With that, I think.
I just feel like there was a lot more going on in the beginning of the book, and up until once they're on the death charge or whatever, or wherever, under the water, then it starts to slow down a lot. But up until that point, it was awesome. Yeah. I thought it was so good. Anyways, besides the point. Rune, at some point, Lydia tells Rune that she doesn't know who their dad is, that he's unimportant, that it was basically at a sex festival thingy-magbobber, and
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, anyways, but of course, we must realize who this author is, SJM. Of course their dad is going to be important at some point.
Yes.
I have a thought that I feel like we learned Brannon has blonde hair and blue eyes, and then Actaeon has black hair and golden eyes. They say that Actaeon has her eyes and Brannon has her hair. So the two features that we don't know who go to are the black hair and the blue eyes. And then I had this thought where we obviously understand that the shifters all came from the world of Throne of Glass. And honestly, a lot of the lines I can see where they kind of ended up. The only person that we haven't really seen come out again is Dorian and the Havliards with raw magic.
Oh my gosh, I had the same thought.
So, I'm not saying that it was Dorian that is their dad, but I'm saying that it's a descendant of Dorian or the Havliards. And so that would mean that Bran would have fire magic and would be descendant of essentially Deanna and have the fire magic like Lydia, and Actaeon would have raw magic. And it would be the only other time that we've ever seen someone have raw magic, because we haven't seen raw magic come again. Except for Dorian.
Wait, I 100% agree, because when they're describing Bran as well, I think she says, not in relation to magic, but says he has an inner wildfire to him, which would make sense. Mm-hmm. And then, I associated Bran has blue eyes and the wildfire, and Ace has I think they say a dark and stony exterior with black hair and golden eyes.
Yeah.
But a lot of people were saying, Lydia's a direct descendant from Aelin, but I think you're right. I think it leans more Dorian than it does Aelin.
Which, honestly, I kind of love that, because obviously, a lot of people have always been, joking, when Aelin and Dorian have kids, their kids will get married and combine the Ashriver, Galathinius, and Havliard line. But honestly, in this way, you're still kind of gathering. I know it's a lot of big names.
That's a lot of names.
But technically, in this way, you did combine those two lines, and you had two twins that came out of it. That's kind of sick.
And something that I noticed is they describe the two twins, Ace and Bran, as, I guess Bran and Ace as the sun and the moon.
Yes.
Kind of. And I'm pretty sure, this is from the depths, the recesses of my mind. So yes. I believe when Manon and Aelin are fighting in Air of Fire, they describe them as, it looks like the sun and the moon.
Oh.
With Manon, which would make sense if it's a descendant of Manon and Dorian together. So I was like, oh.
Which also would be really interesting because that would also mean that maybe Actaeon is part witch.
Yeah, it has
which
some
would
sort
be
of witch
because they
blood.
talked about male witches at some point and how rare those were. Like they could exist though, something like that. So that would also be an interesting plot point. I don't know, but I loved the idea of them kind of basically representing the coming together of the Havliard and Galathinius lines. That would be so sick.
I think if I could ask for any SJM book, I would want to see Ace and Bran aged up to, 16 plus.
They are 16.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they're 16 in this book.
Why
16,
did I picture
17.
them like 12?
No, they're older. I thought the first time I read the book too, I thought they were younger, and then the second time I read it, I realized, so she says that they were 18 months old when she left them, and that was 15 years ago.
So they're 16 and a half.
Yeah, they're almost 17. They're old.
I take it back. I want it now.
Yeah, I want it now. I agree. I want her to write another YA book series, and I want it to be about Ace and Bran. But I've talked about this before where I feel like in every single one of the book series, there's like a generation of kids. Like you also have, like in Throne of Glass, you have Evangeline, and you also have Nehemiah's little brothers, and you also have, what's Dorian's little brother's name?
Oh, Holland?
Holland?
Yeah.
And then obviously we have Nyx, who's a baby right now. But like, you kind of have these like generations of like little kids in all the books. And I'm like, I want to see them. But Ace and Bran like definitely sparked my interest in this book for sure.
Yeah, they honestly, Rune and Lydia and Ace and Bran, stars of the show.
Yes.
If we're being honest.
Also, this is such a side note, but I also thought it was so cute because we see like Rune stress out about the Oracle's like thing of like, the bloodline, the royal line ends with you. And so the entire time he's like stressing like either I'm gonna die or I'm not gonna be able to have kids. And so it's so cute that this entire book series he's been like stressed about not having kids, and then he ends up with 2.
Oh my gosh.
Anyways, I thought that was so giddy. Rune and Lydia just make me so giddy.
Okay, I have 3 thoughts.
Okay, go.
They're all kind of one-offs.
Okay, go.
Okay, first things first. Was I the only one in the crossover when Bryce makes the ground concave and they find the Asteri in the glass coffin?
Yeah.
Whatever. Was I the only one who thought that was Maeve for half a second? Because when they're describing her, one, they describe her exactly like Maeve.
No.
Like, to a T.
Yes, I didn't catch it the first time I read it, but when I was listening to it again, I was like, wait, are they describing Maeve? I literally had that same thought.
And then they say a random thing where when she's coming out of the coffin, it says like, quote, it's like watching a hatching spider.
Yes.
And so with the Stygian
I had
spiders,
the same thought too.
I was like, oh, that's kind of niche. And then Bryce says something when they're fighting. It's like, oh, is her blood black? And I think it's Azriel or something. It's like, oh no, it's just dark in here or something. I'm like, no, black because she's Valg, because she's Maeve. And I mean, logistically, I don't think that actually makes sense.
That's
if it's
what.
Maeve,
Well, I forgot. I was gonna look because they officially killed her in the West, right? Okay, but I literally had that same exact thought where I was like, why do they literally seem like the same exact person?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know if this is a coincidence. I feel like Sarah J Maas doesn't do a lot of coincidences.
Yes.
So I'm like, it probably has to mean something. What? I have not made it that far.
True.
But then, this bothered me so bad. Okay, when Bryce visits the Autumn King after taking Truth Teller, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're under the impression that she's there on accident, right?
Yeah.
But then we find out that, she actually went there on purpose,
She
right?
had this whole thing planned somehow.
But what I don't understand is it's all told from Bryce's point of view, right?
Yeah.
It's not the Autumn Kings. So it's not like, my daughter's so dumb, she came here on accident. No, it's Bryce's point of view, and in her inner monologue, she's like, oh, shoot, how did I end up here? I'm like, you don't need to talk to yourself in your inner monologue.
That is true. I mean, it is in a third person. Oh, so, yeah, I see what you mean.
To me, it was really weird because, yes, you want to write it that way so it's a surprise to us, but when we're in her point of view and like inside of her head, she shouldn't be questioning herself and her motives, which then makes her an unreliable narrator to an extent. So then going forward, I'm like, I don't trust anything you're saying because you just lied to me.
And then proceeded to do that a lot throughout the rest of the book series. Yeah, I didn't think about it in that way, but it's so true. Like, again, I felt like it was like trying to like be what Aelin was. But it just missed the mark.
And I'm like, if you're gonna do that, it should have been from somebody else. I mean, I know point of view is relative because it's third person, things like that.
Yeah.
But it should have been from somebody else's point of view, being like, oh, she looks super confused. Like, she's obviously not here on purpose. So we're coming to these assumptions, but then we flip to Bryce, and Bryce is like, oh, I did this on purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I'm like, wow, she's doing mental gymnastics to convince herself that she came here on accident.
No, that's so true. Did you have any other things?
Yes, one other random thought was the Hunt Bryce reunion after Hunt gets back from being tortured just made me want to off myself because I think it's quote, they see each other, hey, that's their reunion. I'm like, no, I know Sarah J Maas can write a reunion scene. We all read Queen of Shadows when Rowan and Aelin reunite. I get butterflies in my tummy when I read that. And you left me with, hey? I was like, oh, this is so bad.
Oh, I just hate their relationship. It just, they give me the ick in this book series, in all honesty.
Oh, truly.
But in this book specifically, the ick. 100%.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Okay, wait, I'll rapid fire my like random thoughts, and then I have like two more like bigger thoughts. First off, was depressed for Asriel when they took away his comfort dagger.
I know, his emotional support dagger.
It's like sad guy.
Yeah, why did I think he was in the fetal position? And then when she opens the portal again and Nesta's like, give me the dagger back, I'm like, Asriel is not doing well.
Yeah, he really needs that dagger. Anyways, so, and then the other one was they call the king of Avalon the Stag King. And I said, that is the most confusing and random, like, crossover from Throne of Glass ever. It made no sense. And I was like, I don't even understand. I have no other thoughts, and I just thought that was stupid.
They described his ship, I think, too, that had a giant stag head on it, and it was made of antlers. And then they also say his throne was made of antlers. Yeah. I'm like, this is all very Throne of Glass, Terrasen coded.
Yes.
But why?
No, I literally don't know. And Lydia does say, she's like, this is degrading to the ancestors that once, or like, no, she says that this is degrading to the stag shifters. But I was like, they're just degrading to freaking Throne of Glass because this is stupid. I don't even understand why this is a thing.
Yeah, we don't want him.
I don't even understand. Anyways, also I just thought it was weird that he was never referred to the Stag King in the second book when we start hearing about him. It wasn't until this book, and I was like, that came out of left field. Anyways, other thought was we obviously get clips of Juniper and Fury in this.
Oh.
One, Juniper's kind of the worst. The only ever time I felt like her literal role as in this book was literally just to be a thorn in Bryce's side and cause tension and problems. Because that's literally all she does.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I honestly have never, even when we find out that Danica has like been keeping things from Bryce, I never questioned Danica and Bryce's friendship. But then I'm like, you're telling me that you were also friends with Juniper and Fury and like you were tight like that group of 4 friends just was never believable to me.
Oh, I've never once pictured it as a group of 4 friends. I pictured Danica and Bryce as friends, and then obviously Fury and Juniper together with like randomly Bryce being like that weird third friend that's just not quite in as tight.
I don't know. I just thought that they're like it felt like it was supposed to be like this like dynamic 4 group of girls, and it just never gave that.
No.
So, yeah. Don't know about that. Anyways, Ethan, despised him in this book. Found him so annoying. But we also get like clips of like him talking to Perry, who is another wolf.
Yes.
And I think that she's going to be a little interesting of a character, but based off of the things that Ethan says in this book, They are definitely mates.
Yeah. I know she did not confirm it on page, but it's
she
true.
She did though. That's the thing. So I think that they're mates. So that's a 100%. Random thought. And then my last quick one off was that I had this thought because again we've talked about how Bryce and Hunt's mating bond just has never really felt believable.
Yeah.
And I had this thought because obviously their magic feeds off of each other. And I was like, what if they're not mates, but they're Karenam?
Karenam or whatever.
Karenam. And because also they refer to each other as wife and husband a lot. They don't they say mate, but they also they're my best friend, my husband, my mate. And husband or wife is always incorporated in the way that they describe each other. And I'm like, if you're mates, you're just mates. The other people that are mates don't refer to each other as husband and wife.
No.
And so I was like, what if they're and that's why their magic can play into each other. Because we see in Throne of Glass how Rowan and Aelin just were I thought it was just the Karen and them bond of us because, that's supposed to be a really strong bond as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having this thought that maybe Hunt and they're not actually mates, that they're more Corinne and them.
I mean, it would make sense because we do find out that Hunt is a test tube baby made specifically for Bryce, right?
Well, they did say they were in on my feelings and things for my mating bond for Bryce, and they were that was earned. There was nothing we could that was greater powers more than us, And I was like, okay, but why do I still not believe it, even though you just said that?
Yeah, absolutely not. Which, random side note with the husband-wife thing, it drove me up the freaking wall when Hunt's being tortured and he says something really sweet. He's like, oh, the only way I'm getting through this is thinking of Bryce, my wife, my mate, and the feeling of sinking into her. And I was like,
no, they were very sexually driven. This couple, that's literally almost the last scene until freaking Baxian calls them, and I'm like,
thank goodness.
Why?
I'm like, you're such a horn dog though. Right now, I thought you were gonna be very heartfelt and be like, my wife, my mate. No, that's not what it was.
Horny man.
Yeah.
Instead, anyways, those were kind of all my one-off thoughts. I had another thought because last episode. You had talked about how maybe the Halos were
Wordstone.
Yes. In this book, it was never confirmed that the Asteri were Valg. But what I thought was but there was a couple of things that were said throughout this entire book that makes you kind of believe it.
Mm-hmm.
But the number one thing that made me believe it was, and I didn't catch this the first time I read it, but when Bryce and Hunt are talking to the Princes of Hell, they talk and they're like, Hunt, why have you not gotten rid of your halo? And they're like, what? And he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, when the Asteri tried to contain our world, they had the halo in the form of a collar, but it couldn't hold us. And I was like, shut the freaking door! No freaking way! I literally didn't think that they were actually Valg. I just thought that was some sort of conspiracy theory until I read that, and I was like, oh wait, no, shut up, no freaking way.
But why was that also so frustrating? Because they say, in the form of a collar, and pretty much if you're a son or a prince of hell, the collar can't contain you, and so they pretty much say, you could just take it off this whole time, just
which was really odd, but at the same time, I was like, I was like, again, I felt like the reason why they did that was literally just to get the point across that the Asteri are the Valg.
I 100% agree.
So, that was a really long-winded way to go about that, but, sure.
And we see the one Asteri, like I just said, they bleed black.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah, and that was the other part, too, that I was like, okay, that would make sense. What I also thought was interesting, though, however, if that is the case, which is also kind of a plot hole to me, is that the Throne of Glass book is this massive series, this massive war for how many people? 2. Erlwan and Maeve, who are Valg / Asteri / Daglin, right? We went through that entire experience for 2 of them, yet we finished this war in Midgard in about less than 100 pages for 5?
And I think 2 of them are killed off page.
Yes. One of them is killed on page, and then maybe another one is killed off page, but then the rest are thrown into like the black hole portal thing. I literally was like, you're kidding. I was like, what? Throne of Glass was prepared to, like, this whole big ordeal for 2 of them, essentially. Yet we get barely anything for 5?
Well, same thing with the crossover with the Asteri that was in the glass coffin. I feel like they killed that Asteri so quickly.
So fast.
With so much ease.
So much ease. And I was like, I quite literally don't understand. But, I mean, to be fair, though, that is really interesting because we learned that, like, is it the dagger and the star sword, like, when combined can kill the Asteri? Is that what it is? Yes.
Yes. When Truth Teller and the star sword are combined, they open, like, a black hole.
And that kills the Asteri.
Yeah. Oh, I think they called it, like, a gate to nothing or something.
Yeah, they called it that, but I think there was also a way that it was used so then it killed them. But I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But my thought was that I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting. So, but it did kind of debunk your last theory of Hunt being the one that kills Danica, because if that's the case, if he was never really actually able to be controlled by the Halo, then there was no way for the Asteri to actually contain him and tell him what to do.
Yeah, unless he didn't know before, or maybe he did know and he killed Danica on purpose.
Yeah.
For a different reason.
Yeah, I don't know, but
it is a very shaky theory, I will admit.
No, but anyways, I just thought that was really interesting because I didn't realize that it was like so like clear as day that like the Asteri were also the Valg.
Yeah. I have one more thought before the ending, which I gotta rip into. Mm-hmm. The thought before is just, I could not get over this situation with the frickin' mask. Like, the fact that when we're in the crossover, Nesta uses the mask to build the bone worm, to kill the mitten guard worm, whatever. And then we see Azrael come up to her and be like, Cassian needs you, Nyx is waiting for you, Feyre needs you. And she struggles to get the mask off.
Yes.
But then, when the Harpy's in the picture and Bryce needs to wear the mask, she throws it on and takes it off. No problems at all.
Oh.
And then
Hunt wears the mask. That is the most inconsistent plot I've ever seen. This Dread Trove situation makes absolutely no sense. And I truly tried to understand where maybe she was going with the Dread Trove and like how the mask worked and the harp worked and things like that. Literally not a single clue at this point. It makes no sense. There are so many inconsistencies with it.
I tried to look into it to be like, oh, why? Because to my understanding, the reason they say Bryce can wear the mask is because of Thea's magic or whatever. And then the reason they say Hunt can wear the mask is because they had sex right before this that slightly merged their magic together. So now he is a drop of maid magic.
That is so many. Oh, wait, I think in the scene he does say, he's like, I still have a little bit of drop of Bryce's magic in me or whatever. Yeah. But I'm like, that is just like such a small nuanced thing in order for that to work. It's like, I just think it was like, just so not practical. So stupid. What that tells me is that you were stuck and you didn't know how to get Bryce out of the situation.
Yeah.
So you came up with the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And we're like, yeah, that works.
Because in that case, wouldn't you be able to argue and be like, well, Nesta sleeps with Cassian all the time, so why can't Cassian wear the mask?
Yeah, like, no, that's exactly.
You know? And they'll be like, no, but it's Thea's. You're like, yeah, this is so just like, she threw it out there last minute because it feels like she didn't know how else to do it. And she just added this one caveat that's like, oh, yeah, it can happen because of this.
Yeah.
Unsatisfied. I almost threw a fit when I saw him put on the mask. But moving to the ending.
Oh, yeah.
The whole ending, starting with when the battle begins all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm.
First things first that I did not realize until skimming it again this time. They obviously have the parasite in the water that makes them less powerful, and Hypaxia develops a cure, which, by the way, she develops in like 24 hours. So
yes,
you go, girl. She's cooking.
She is doing amazing things out there. Hypaxia was saving the world around here.
Well, kinda, because she's also supposed to be like such a good necromancer, and then
everything she does absolutely fails.
Yeah, but whatever her name, I already forgot it. I was
necromancer. That was right.
No, not Sabir. That sounds like Sabine.
Sigrid.
But and then she becomes a Reaper, and I'm like, wow, you're really just not great at your job.
No.
Anyways, Hunt and Bryce never get the antidote.
I know.
Why?
I don't know.
But they still win just fine.
No, I don't understand. I literally don't understand. There was like, we've talked about this before, where SJM is just not very good at writing battle scenes and war
Agreed.
scenes, and I think that she avoids it as much as she can. However, we have been preparing for this war for 3 books.
Yes.
You are going against 5 Asteri / Valak / Daglin, and somehow we're able to accomplish that in less than 100 pages? No, that does not seem right. And literally with nothing. Like, I just don't understand. Like, there was no buildup, no, like, at least, like, in Throne of Glass, like, in the war scenes and stuff, like, there's a scene, like, this impactful scene of, you know, Aelin, like, leading the pack and, like, sitting on the stag, like, whatever. We get none of that. All of a sudden, it's just, like, a shiz show of everyone running around in varying different places, and I'm like, where are we going? What are we doing? What are we even fighting at this point? I don't know.
No, I did not like it, and I hate how Bryce was playing martyr almost and just, I'm going to do this alone. I'm like, why on earth are you doing this alone? It doesn't make any sense. However, I will say, when Shahar, I guess Shahar's soul comes in the mech suit, okay, A+, Sarah J Maas, that was cute.
The Shahar stuff and then the Jessica thing, both of those things definitely not saved him, but definitely like made those scenes much more bearable. Because those were so good.
I did not like the Jessica thing at all. But we'll get there.
Okay, sorry. Continue.
We see Bryce die, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm like, I read this. I'm like, I've read ACOTAR. I've freaking read ACOWAR. You're telling me this is the 3rd time this is gonna happen?
Yeah.
Can she not think of a new plot point?
No, they all have to be dead and then come back to life.
I'm like, oh my gosh, just kill one of them freaking off. But this is where my alternate ending comes in. What I wish would have happened. Because Bryce dies, and then Apollyon looks at Hunt and says, like, you have very limited time, but you can follow in after her, so then you both can die together.
Yeah.
Speaking from a place of, he was in love with Thea, right? And he saw Thea die, and so he's like, you could go with her. That's
Adis. You're talking about Adis, but yes.
Adis. And he's like, you could go with her, right? And he's like, no, she's not dead. I'm like, you know how good or much better I feel like the book would have been if Bryce and Hunt actually died at the end of this war to end the war, and then we actually get main characters who die. We already murdered Bryce's character anyway, so that gives them a little bit of a redemption, and then we carry on with Rune and Lydia as the main characters for the next Crescent City, because we're already more invested in them.
Well, and I think it would have been a really cool thing too, where if we would have been able to maybe even still see a perspective of Bryce from the other side and being with Danica and the pack of wolves and having Hunt there, and like, you know what I mean, and having the Hobbit, like we get that scene kind of like when she says she sees Danica and the wolves and things like that. I mean, I understand why they didn't die, but also at the same time, I'm like, that would have been way better, I feel like, and much more fulfilling. And I'm like, okay, so this, and also at the same time, that also would have made me feel like this war was a lot of a bigger deal than I felt like it was. Because if the main characters die, I'm like, dang, this war was intense. But because they didn't, I'm like, that war was stupid.
And I'm like, I don't need this
even
regurgitation of ACOTAR and ACOWAR with they're dead, but then they're not dead because we're going to resurrect them. No, we've already seen it twice. Kill them off. I don't think Bryce and Hunt are that beloved characters anyway.
No.
I think it's pretty unanimous that people prefer Rune and Lydia.
Yes.
And that would have been a great opportunity, even if it was kill them off, Rune and Lydia now take the lead character spot, and now we get these perspectives of Ace and Bran in the next Crescent City because now they're more of a main character. Great opportunities, but no, we had to bring her back to life.
No, we had to. I think, though, I honestly feel like Bryce and Hunt's story, I mean, by the end of the book, I can't tell if, and maybe she doesn't really know where Hunt and Bryce's story is going, because I felt like it was ended in a way that was like, okay, they could either be done and not come back into the story at all, or they could it just kind of depends on, I think, where she wants to go with it, because I don't think she knows where she wants to go with Crescent City.
No, there's no way, because even with Jessica coming in and saying, hey, I'll give up my immortal life if you bring Bryce back, and Apollyon's like, yep, that sounds great. Hunt is asking the real question. He's like, I thought you didn't even like Bryce that much. Yeah. And Jessica's response sent me up the freaking wall, where she's like, I wrote it down. Do you know how hard it is to find a competent assistant? Girl, you're about to die for her. Can we get serious for a quick minute, and could you just be
emotional
and be like, yeah, I was hard on her, but like I really believed all these things. Give us something, because on page we haven't seen them have like a great
tender moment.
Like, yeah, they had a good relationship, but they didn't have like a tender emotional relationship. So I'm like, if we are gonna go that way, you better freaking sell it at the end.
Yeah.
I read that line. I was like, I'm gonna shut this book. I'm so mad. Ridiculous.
Like she talks to Bryce, and I can't remember what she says to Bryce exactly, but I think it was like a little bit more heartfelt. The first time I read that book and Jessica like sees Bryce and she sees the pack of wolves and Danica and things like that, I cried the first time I read it. But yeah, I think that there was not enough. There wasn't even like a part of like them, suiting up, getting ready for war. Like there just was like nothing. All of a sudden they just were going, and I'm like, where are we? What are we doing? Like I just didn't understand.
I needed more. I don't even know what to call the moments, but like the moment where Lydia takes the antidote and her wildfire is released and she burns Pollux.
Yes.
I'm like, yes, this is what I want to see.
Yes, and then she goes and she's like blowing things up and she meets up with the sprites and like she is like running, like going to war. I'm like, great. One person is fighting in this war. Where is everybody else?
And I thought her writing and the writing and the setup and everything was great. I really, really enjoyed that part of the book.
Yes.
But then everything else in the war was super underwhelming. And tell me, we left Fury, whose job is an assassin, who's Amarin adjacent, on the freaking island?
I literally don't understand that part either.
You didn't bring her to war where she would thrive?
Yeah, apparently not. Also, side note, I had a side note about Lydia's magic. Because in that scene, we start to finally get we get the inner monologue of her. We find out that Bran's full name is Bran, and also cried during that time the first time I read it because I didn't catch on to it the first time. I'm literally so stupid. Other side tangent, when I first read the book, I literally Googled what the definition of both the boys' names were. And I was like, Actaeon. And then I also like Googled the definition of Bran's name, and I was like, oh, that doesn't like mean anything. I was like trying to see if they were like Throne of Glass adjacent. I'm so stupid. Anyways, but what I thought was super interesting was Lydia says in her inner monologue that it's her biggest secret she's ever contained was her fire magic. And how when they were in the cave and the Autumn King like had the flame around them, that she was the one that snuffed it out, and it was hard for her to like be able to hide that from other people, but because of the chaos no one noticed. So you're telling me that Lydia's fire magic was so powerful that even with the parasite she still had it, and she had just been containing it for this entire time.
Also, didn't we establish the Autumn King is like one of the most powerful fae of all time? And you're telling me that with the parasite, she's still more powerful than the Autumn King?
Yes, that is what I'm saying, which made me so happy because that also makes me feel like, because obviously we see at the end of Throne of Glass that Aelin's power is kind of like, is reduced down to like an ember or whatever is like how they say it. Like, she loses a lot of her magic, but this is kind of, in my opinion, very fulfilling to me to see that essentially Aelin's fire magic down her line was eventually restored back to that same power. You know what I mean? Because there is no the only way that Lydia would be able to have that fire magic still would be because it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Which I kind of loved. So I thought that was super interesting. I never heard anyone talk about that part.
No, I don't know if I even realized that.
Yeah.
Until just now.
Yeah. But yeah, she talks about how it was her biggest secret that she was withholding her fire magic, and also maybe it's like, it's the wildfire. Like, you can't contain the fire magic. And so that's why it like wasn't affected by the parasite. I don't know. But to me, I'm going with the route of her power was that powerful, that her magic was that powerful.
And now that she's taken the antidote, I hope in the next Crescent City we actually get to see her. I say all the time, I love to see bad A women thrive. I hate how Bryce decided to not take on her princess responsibilities, to go, or queen responsibilities, whatever, and go live a quiet life running the I want to say
Griffin's
antiquity shop and things like that. Yes, I see how that could be fulfilling. For me personally, in my taste, I don't care for that.
Yeah.
So I need, and same thing with Throne of Glass, how we see Aelin's power dwindle to an ember.
Yeah.
Not fulfilling for me.
Yes.
I need to see a bad A woman thrive and absolutely want to murder everybody because she's so strong. And Lydia better be my freaking opportunity to see that.
No, I agree. And I think it'd be really cool to see, too, now the twins are going to take the antidote and they're going to get their powers. And we also didn't get, because if Lydia was a shifter, wouldn't that mean that Bran and Actaeon are also shifters? And we never even got a hint of what they could shift into, if they can shift. Like, we didn't really get a glimpse into what their shifting abilities were, if they had any. And now if they take the antidote, then they would have magic as well, hopefully.
Because in theory, if they come from Dorian can shift into whatever he wants.
Dorian has raw magic.
Because of the raw magic. So if Actaeon has the raw magic with the antidote, he's at full power. Mm-hmm. Potentially, he could shift into whatever he wants.
Well, that's true. He could have shape-shifting abilities. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't know. But I just, that to me, that whole dynamic of Rune and Lydia and the two boys and things like that is far more interesting to me than anything else. Honestly, though, also Tharian and Sathia also was it started to get interesting to me, and I really do like Sathia. I would be really happy to read about her perspective. I see the potential there. Bad A woman. I see the potential of a bad A woman there.
Bad A women.
Yes, bad A women there. So those are kind of like the characters that I think I care about the most.
I will say,
at this point,
I was really impressed with Sarah J Maas because she brought in Sathia really kind of out of the blue. Yes, she had been name dropped a few times prior, so we knew of her, but we didn't really see her.
Yeah.
Within her one interaction with the River Queen, right?
Yes.
That one interaction, it's very short. I was cheering for her. I was rooting for her, and she made me want to see more of her within one scene.
Yes.
So
and honestly, I was hooked on Sathia too, because she is the only person in this entire book that calls out Bryce. That is a moment of like I told you earlier, was that she's I thought that you would want to be queen and save us. You know what I mean? She calls Bryce out and being I think what you're saying is you should think about it. And I'm yeah, you tell her, Sathia.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, exactly. So I really like her character. I think SJM did a good job at making us like a character really fast.
Yes, I 100% agree. And I guess the other thing I would be somewhat interested in is Ethan and Perry's relationship. I do think they're mates, and I think that was practically confirmed, even though that was not official.
Yeah, I think it was pretty obvious, I feel like.
Yeah, I would like to see where that goes.
Me too.
But do I need to see more of Bryce and Hunt? The answer is no.
No. Also, I would love to see Perry and Ethan, because I feel like Perry has, based off the things that were said, also he's I don't know what Perry's magic was. And he's also I don't even know if she took the antidote. That's super interesting, whatever. I'd be really interested to see where she goes, and I wouldn't even be surprised if Perry becomes the Prime instead. Her and Ethan become mates or something like that, and she basically goes from an Omega, the lowest of the low, wolf, to Prime. That would be sick, and Ethan can go do his sunball or whatever he wants.
Yeah, which Ethan's such a mystery, because didn't we establish too that he has ice magic randomly all of a sudden?
Yes.
I'm okay.
And he wants to go play sunball now.
Yeah. What a frat boy thing to do.
Such a frat boy thing. Also, side note, because I don't even think I know the answer. Do you know what real life sport sunball is adjacent to?
Baseball? Question mark.
No, it's not baseball.
Genuinely, now that you ask me, I don't even know what it is.
I don't know what it is either. I thought at first it was soccer, and then someone did a fan art of Rune playing with Bran, playing sunball with Bran, and it looked like a basketball court. And then at the end of the book, Ethan is like, I'm excited to get back on the field with a ball in my hand. And I'm like, so what freaking field and a ball in my hand? Football? I'm like, what are we playing here? Yeah, rugby maybe? I was like, what are we playing?
That is actually an iconic question because I have no idea.
If anyone has any insight on what Sunball actually is or adjacent to, let us know.
The fact that I didn't even ask questions.
And I guess it doesn't have to be adjacent to anything, but I just assumed it was, so.
Yeah, or at least give us like a mixture of two sports or like give me some sort of understanding.
Yeah, no.
So I'm looped in.
Okay. The last few thoughts I have are about just where the SJM universe is going as a whole.
Yes.
So, we thought that since this is our last episode, we'll kind of just give our thoughts of where we think the SJM universe is going, what is next, what our theories are. Do you want me to go first or do you want to go first?
Please, you go first.
I'll go first? Okay. So, this is kind of why I waited because this I think ties into it. So, in CC3, we also get a little tidbit from the Underking. We find out that the Underking was from the Shifter's world, which we assume is the world of Throne of Glass.
Yep.
And he tells us that Erd was known on his world as Word.
You don't do this to me right now.
I'm sorry. Anyway, so we get this little tidbit of that Erd is essentially the same thing as Word.
Yeah.
And in the Throne of Glass world, the Word was essentially like the essence and the fate builder, and like Word was like what gave them their mates, things like that.
Yes.
And to me, that sounds like what the mother is in the ACOTAR world. So we have Word equals Erd equals mother. Same thing.
Love it.
Yes. Anyways, and to me, I was like, okay, where could this go? Because I truly do think that there's a potential for like an actual crossover, like Endgame style, like people coming from all the different worlds and having this like intergalactic war of some sort, essentially, is truly where I think this is going. I think that the ACOTAR series is going to build up to the last book being kind of a crossover huge war. And the way that I think that can only happen is because we've seen, the Valg and the Steri and Daglin and stuff have been very powerful, yet that still wasn't a good enough reason to like have a crossover in the sense of like ACOTAR characters didn't come help Midgard, even though they had literally 5 Asteri Valg people. So I don't know who the villain is going to be in the rest of the ACOTAR books, or what the next what the overarching villain's going to be that's going to like bring in a lot of the other worlds. But what I do think is that whoever the villain is, it's going to be someone who is going to try and essentially control Word/Erd/Mother, and that Word and Erd are just the space between all of the worlds and the essence and the energy and space, essentially. Space and time between all of the worlds.
Yeah.
And if you control it, then you control all of the gates and all of all the worlds. And I think that whatever the villain is going to be who's ever going to try and take control of that.
The only person that comes to mind is Koschei.
Because Koschei is the only villain that we've actually seen.
Yeah.
And we do know that Koschei and the Bone Carver and stuff came from another world. So they know that you can come from other worlds. That's a thing, So that's like what I think that like the problem is going to be. I think that there is going to be at the very end of CC3 as well, we see that Bryce gives the dagger and the star sword to Nesta.
Yes.
And says, you were tattooed with an 8-pointed star on your back. Go figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what makes me feel like the next ACOTAR book may not just be about Azriel and Elaine and Lucian. It's going to still be about Nesta. And I think there's going to be some sort of significance still of the 8-pointed star and being marked by the 8-pointed star. I don't really know. But I think that at the end, it's all going to lead to all of these people from each of the worlds essentially building what I would call the Court of Realms, and they would be the people that control Word/Erd/Mother, and it would be people it'd be like Feyre and Rhysand, Nesta and Cassian, Lydia and Rune, Bryce and Hunt, Aelin and Rowan. I don't know who would be in this Court of Realms, but they would make another court, and it would be the people that are basically over the gates and the worlds of traveling and things like that. That's where I think it's going.
That would actually be crazy because that has escalated a lot further from where all the original series started. Because I'm not a huge, especially when it comes to movies and things like that, we've seen a lot of franchises dipping their toes into like multiverse, which is not my favorite.
Yeah.
So
I think it could get really messy, which is what's nerve-wracking.
Messy too, which scares me. I thought the opportunity for a crossover with ACOTAR was really cool, and she kept it very, very minimal this time. Mm-hmm. So I would like to see a larger crossover. Yeah. I think we've established Throne of Glass, at least with Aelin and Rowan, is 15,000 years before this, so we probably won't get the opportunity to see them. Yeah,
originally my thought was that like it would be like all of them, but then we kind of learned that maybe the Throne of Glass world is 15,000 years before. So I don't know if they would be involved in it, but somewhat people would be, you know?
Yeah, but there's definitely people in the Throne of Glass world right now, just present day, and even seeing Lydia and everything like that, and her ancestry with Throne of Glass would be really cool, because and for us personally, that's our favorite series. I would love to see
to see them come back.
But yeah, that's kind of crazy. Yeah. I do think Sarah J Maas has a special place in her heart for Nesta for some reason, which is kind of odd because she was more of an obscure character.
Yeah, but I think she is about to lead the rest of ACOTAR. Like, truly, I think that she's kind of the next Farah, in all honesty.
100% agree. And I don't know if, while Sarah J Maas was writing ACOTAR, if Nesta just personally became a favorite. And that's why she did, like, a second gen that Nesta gets to lead. Yeah. Or what she had in mind. But I agree. I think Nesta is going to play a major, major part in resolving all the ACOTAR books.
Yes, and I don't know. And again, there's some inconsistencies. Her having the Star Sword and now she can hold. I don't know where Nesta's character is going exactly, but I do think that maybe her and Azriel will be kind of important, because I do also think that part of ACOTAR is also going to be resurrecting the Dusk Court. Because we learn about the Avalon and the prison and those kind of being like two halves of the Dusk Court, and them being thin places and things like all of that. And so I think that there is going to be a part of the next ACOTAR books is going to be resurrecting the Dusk Court, and I always thought that Azriel was going to be the like head of that, you know. But on all honesty, maybe even Nesta is going to play a bigger role in that. I don't know.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned thin places too, don't they establish that the House of Wind is a thin place as well?
I don't think that they did. No.
Oh, I thought I heard that, and I was like, oh. That's really random.
No, they established at the island that the prison is a thin place, but I don't think that they established that the house was a thin place. But yeah, that's kind of where I see it going. I've said this in the last episode, but the last ACOTAR book I think is going to be a Court of Stars Eternal, and it'll just be bringing all of the worlds together and having a massive endgame type war. The Valkyries will come into play. I know that in mythology, like, Valkyries ride the Pegasi, whatever the plural of that is. And we see at the end of CC3 that the Avalon starts popping out.
Yeah, back scenes like there's flying horses.
Yes, exactly. So I think that the Valkyrie will come into play, and I think that Bryce will honestly might be a part of that. But I don't know. That's kind of where I think this is going. I think it's still going to lead into more crossover for sure.
Yeah, I'm also interested to see with Crescent City, actually, it seems like they're setting it up to have all the friends be the heads of the houses.
Yes.
Or like,
I did notice that, actually.
Because we obviously have Hypaxia, who's the new under queen, whatever, right? And then Ethan's Prime, technically Bryce's Avalon, and whatever.
And over the Fae.
Yeah. And things like, so it seems like they're
Isaiah's going to start taking over the angels.
Yeah. The only thing we don't know about, obviously, is House of Many Waters, which is going to be in the next Crescent City book. So I'm interested to see if she's going to try and do that.
Yeah, I don't know what she's going to try and do.
But yes, I hope to see a lot more crossover.
Yeah.
I think not a reunion because they've never met before, but Rune and Reese meeting each other could be really epic.
And I think Rune's mom coming into play would also be just awesome. I think her being together again with Reese Ann and stuff like that, I would love to see that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where Tampon goes, because I don't know if you saw, but Sarah J Maas the last couple days has been not pinning to her story, posting to her story only spring court.
Again?
Things.
Oh, wait, but I did not even pick up on it. I was so busy yesterday.
And so, I mean,
I thought we were getting an announcement this week, so I'm so shocked we haven't gotten an announcement, in all honesty, of what the next book is, but we'll see.
Yeah. There's a lot of players right now. I'm interested to see where it goes.
I'm a little bit, like, honestly, like, looking at the full picture, I'm like, there's a lot. So I'm a little bit nervous. Either whatever she has planned is going to be really, really good, or it's going to fall short, and it's going to fall apart really fast.
I think, too, with Elaine, I've heard a lot of people theorize that she's going to be the most powerful of the three sisters, because she's kind of been a sleeper this whole time, if you will. And I don't know if I agree with that, but I do think there's a lot more to her that we don't understand. Mm-hmm. I think her being a seer, I think there's definitely has to be more to that, especially with the ACOTAR mating bond and her matching up with Lucian, but then the theory that maybe she was supposed to be with Azrael. Both of those people are pretty powerful, and as of right now, it sounds like her powers do not match their level of power, so there's got to be something there.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. Also, there was one more thought, too, that I had seen. This wasn't a theory that I came up with. This was someone else said. But in CC3 as well, we see that when Hunt was in the prison, that he sees this, like, black shadow essence. Yeah. And then we learn, he, like, has, like a vision of it first. And then he sees it again. And it turns out that it was Apollyon. Yeah. From one of the Princes of Hell. Prince of the Pit was watching him and, like, talking to him, essentially. And we started talking about it briefly in one of the past episodes, but I didn't want to say anything without spoiling. But we see in Frost and Starlight that Moore sees a black essence and she feels like it's watching her. Yes. And the way that Moore describes that, like, black essence watching her is almost exactly the way that Hunt describes Apollyon watching him.
Interesting.
And so we had talked about it where we think that maybe Moore is going to have, like, a Tower of Dawn moment where it's going to be like a novella or a separate book of what she's been doing this entire time. And I think now that what Moore was researching and what she was having Clotho research was the possibility of other worlds and world traveling, and, like, could people from other worlds communicate with each other? Like, I think that it's going to be something, like, Moore is going to be doing more research as to, like, what Word and Erd and Mother actually are. Yeah. And I think that's what her research is going to be, and what she's been trying to have Clotho find.
Interesting. So you're suggesting that the shadow that she saw was Apollyon.
Yes, I'm suggesting that what she saw was Apollyon, and that's going to basically, and maybe something else is going to happen that we haven't seen on page yet, that is going to spark her into looking at what this essence between the worlds are, like what space and time actually is, and like how they can world travel. And, like, that's what she's been researching, and she'll get her own separate, like, novella book about that.
Messy, messy, messy.
I know, isn't messy. Anyways, but that's all my thoughts.
Yeah, I think I've interjected a lot of thoughts into that, but I want to see everything we just talked about, but I have no idea where it's going. There's a lot to unpack, but
there's so much.
We've confirmed, correct, that the next book is an ACOTAR book.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've confirmed that the next book is an ACOTAR book, and then the book after that, she hasn't said what world it's going to be in or who it's about, but said that it was going to be a very emotional book to write, is what she said. And then I think she said that maybe the next book was Crescent City, but I don't know.
Wow, the fact that she's, like, has 3 books scripted and everything is just crazy.
She should, though, because if she doesn't know where this is going, she's so screwed, because she has laid out a lot of things right now.
Yes, 100% agree.
Do you have any other thoughts?
No.
That was it? Wow.
Holy cow.
I'm nervous. I think that there's a lot of potential, but also at the same time, I wish that she would write faster. I wish that she would release more books, in all honesty, because I think that she just has a really big picture right now, and I'm not seeing an end of it at all right now.
I don't know if she sees an end of it too, because, I mean, from, like, a lucrative money standpoint, why would she ever stop?
That's true. And people have theorized that she has another series in the works as well. That's not in the 3 series that we have, which I think was also a good way to go about it. But I'm just like, where is the end for at least, like, ACOTAR? Where is the end for Crescent City? Like, I think that I think a lot of us were hoping that CC3 was going to be kind of like a wrap up for a lot of things, and it wasn't. I felt like it left a lot more questions than it did. So I just think that she has opened up a lot of plot points and a lot of plots and a lot of things going on that I'm like, where is this going?
She even said in, I don't know when the interview was, but the one where it's like, they ask her about Throne of Glass, and she's like, well, Throne of Glass is over. Well, is it? And
which I totally get. But at the same time, I'm like, you gotta wrap a bow on something at some point.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah, like, if not, then I'm just gonna keep, like, if I see no end in sight, why would I keep reading? Like, for example, like, I love reading Fourth Wing because she has said it'll be 5 books. So I'm like, I can commit to 5 books.
Yeah.
And, like, waiting for the next one because I know there's gonna be an end. And I know that this is going to, like, move along every book. And I don't know. So we'll see where it goes. I'm a little nervous.
I'm a little nervy too, but I will be reading anything Sarah J Maas puts out, and
True.
We will always come back and give you our true thoughts.
I'm a little nervous that also Akhtar is about to be like a 12-book series or something ridiculous.
I can't. My max is Throne of Glass length. What is that? 7 books?
8 if you count the novella. Yeah. So she's almost there.
Golly.
Anyways, well, thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. That was so much fun talking about SJM and all of the things. We had so many thoughts. So thank you all for enjoying. Hopefully you liked all of our random thoughts. But make sure that you follow us on all of our social media. It's just at LA Reads Podcast for everything. And anything else?
If you go into our link tree, either in our Instagram or in our TikTok, we do have an episode request form. Let us know what you want to see. We're happy to talk about specific books, specific topics, whatever you guys are looking into.
Yes. And also, if you have authors that you also want us to reach out to, because we were also talking about maybe interviewing some people.
Oh, yes.
Let us know if you have anything that you or anyone that you would be interested to hear from, because I think that would be kind of fun to do.
Oh, absolutely. If you are an author and you want to be interviewed, also reach out to us.
Or a book talker or just someone cool in the writing world, let us know. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening this week, and we will see you all next Thursday. Bye!